Thank you very much for inviting me and our team. There's also, I want to acknowledge that we have colleagues from Helsinki University, HY Plus, on the back seat there. Very important delegation that we are having here with the minister. We were really appreciative that two of our universities could come along, and this has been really a very important experience for us. I've been in Kerala once before, and even that visit was an eye-opening. We went to several schools, and to see those children's motivation, the teachers' sort of connectedness with their work and their compassion. I think we do find similar things in Finland, but it's very sort of touching to see that in these schools where there are a lot of children, but still the children, they do seem to have a lot of sort of hope and sort of aspiration. So I will tell a little bit about our educational system first, not too many details, because I think Sajida gave a really good summary of what the Finnish education is about, what are some of the highlights. But I'll then talk a little bit about educational research, FOKI, that different universities might pursue in Finland, and where we would definitely find some joint collaborative space. This is the Finland, as Marilena also showed, but though it's a country with 4 seasons. Now we are approaching the latter picture there. Especially in Jyväskylä, you were doing a really good job in the name. We do have real quite sort of wintry climate, so it can be quite cold, and there's a lot of hobbies like ice skating and such. And we have quite sort of it's not new. We have had international students before, but we have had more nowadays than earlier. We have we have master's programs at the University of Jyväskylä. One of them is in our faculty, and in fact, Aporva is one of our alumni. So we have had more than 17 Indian students during those years. What are the key characteristics of Finnish education? I think that there are many that I could mention. We often sort of rely on this idea of like cultural, social values. What are the key values? Equity and equality, that has been mentioned already here. I think that we share that clearly. The university that I represent, University of Jyväskylä, it was founded as the first Finnish-speaking university and the first university where also women could get a teacher's qualification degree. And having the idea that everyone has the right to education to the fullest, and there are no sort of like dead ends. Even though if you are, as a child, you might want to sort of think about your future, you might think of different paths. There's always like a detour you can go and find your way to the university, for instance, or any kind of professional trade. Trust is one of the values that we often mention, and that can mean a lot of things. It means that teachers and parents have quite a strong trust in each other, and it shows also like how do we when teachers are in their training, they learn this kind of attitude where they build common joint working relations with the parents, and that's one of the strengths, that the parental involvement is highly appreciated and sort of supported. Well-being for all students is something that I would say that it's not a given, especially if we think of the harder sort of developments where there's more like got quite big secondary schools, for instance. That means that we would have to work harder to make sure that children are included and they feel that they can participate and they have agency. Research-based teacher programs was already mentioned. That's a strength, and like Shira was mentioning, there's quite a heavy emphasis on methodological skills and balancing those with practical pedagogical skills and this kind of skills with professional community. How do you build on the idea that you have some skills, of course, in the training, but there's continuous learning after that, and this is what I think we could do even better to make sure that each teacher has this opportunity to renew their skills and competencies. Almost all of the teacher professions are master's degrees. Early childhood education is still a bachelor's, but there's been some talk about also having that. There's many of our early childhood educators, they start as a bachelor, that's the basic level degree, but at least half of our incoming students, they go towards their master's. Then they can also work in the daycare centers as principals. And like oftentimes said, this trust sort of is shown also at the sort of the system level, the organization level. So there's no national teacher evaluation and not even registration, which is something that we have been sort of trying to accomplish, because it would be good to sort of have a better knowledge about like what kind of teachers are in demand. And like was said before, there are these changes that we have to take into account, and teachers' work has changed quite a lot. Nowadays, we feel that the best kind of combination, for instance, in primary schools would be having two teachers work in the same classroom and having a special education teacher work with a classroom teacher, for instance, or having some other kinds of combinations where the teamwork among teachers is easy and it's something that supports the children's needs. Support for all, so this principle of guidance and counseling. So in Finland, it's the case that you won't need a diagnosis for receiving special education or help. It's mandated that teachers should have the skills to give this kind of general support for all students in the classroom, but be ready to sort of switch into more intensive support when needed. ECEC is one of our, I think, our secret weapons, because it has been the foundation. In Finland, children go to grade school when they're 7, and we have had now reforms where first the pre-primary education at 6 years of age was made mandatory. So there's a statute that every 6-year-old will go to early childhood education program, but now we have had a 2-year pilot on 2-year preschool education. And that we have been talking about that with our Indian colleagues, about this kind of what does it mean that we start at 5 years of age and sort of have a continuum of 2 years. We feel that would be an important change, and the early results are promising. So there's a national experiment reform, and there's also a national study on that. So there are 35,000 children are being tested on how they develop and how also the daycare center providers and the staff feel about this kind of change of continuation of 2 years. And then maybe the one character that's most often mentioned is professional autonomy in our teachers' work. We do have curriculum guidelines for all levels, starting from early childhood, pre-primary, and the later years. And nowadays we have mandatory sort of, what is oppivelvollisuus? The necessity to stay at...
Responsibility to learn.
Responsibility to learn, thank you. To stay and sort of continue studies up to the 18 years of age. So this is quite new. It has been mandatory only 1 or 2 years. And this is also something that we need to get more information about. This is something that we are going to study. We have this one opportunity in a big new research project called the EDUCA, which is funded by or will be funded by the ministry, or actually our funding body is Finnish Academy of Science, and one of the ideas is to look at these different reforms and interventions and try to collect big enough data sets in order to sort of look at those areas. What is having an impact and what is not. I'll go forward. Just a quick word about the national core curriculum. These might be also something that you know. So there's a emphasis of active involvement of pupils.
Professor Anna,
yes?
Can I request you to wind it?
Oh, yeah. Sorry, too far. Yeah. Thanks. And this kind of idea that interaction and dialogue among the students, their peers, and also teacher and students. That's one of the main sort of key goals. And having this kind of meaningful learning experiences in early childhood, in pre-primary, it's often play, but it can also be a co-creation, creative problem-solving exercises. And in our latest curriculum, we have this idea that there are subjects, like there might be a lesson on environmental issues, sustainability issues, or in mother tongue, or arts or music. But in all of our subjects, the teachers are also looking at whether and how they can support the teachers' sort of transversal competence skills, thinking skills, learning to learn skills, cultural competence, interaction, expression, taking care of oneself, managing daily life, for instance. Multiliteracies is a big thing, and ICT competence, for instance. And my last slide. It's difficult to summarize what educational research in Finland might look like, because the universities have an autonomy in their curriculum and also in their research. And like was said, all of our university teachers, university lecturers, they have research agendas. They do have oftentimes funded research projects, so it's part of their work to sort of keep on top of what's happening in their field. So some of the areas that I sort of highlighted here are the areas that we do research on. For instance, we look at education and society, so at the system level, diversity issues and justice, equality. We, for instance, in our faculty, we look at a democratic education, how it can be realized. Educational assessment, mostly formative assessment. We don't do summative assessment before the children are a little bit older. Interventions, for instance, we have some interventions looking at the skills, emotional skills, learning of children, but also teachers' skills in supporting children's development. And then instructional practices and pedagogy, classroom interaction was mentioned before. That's something that we've been doing a lot of research, observations and videotapings. And families, childhood and parenting, work life, teacher training, teacher professional development is one of the most studied area. We did a literature review just recently, and that sort of stood out. Mostly qualitative studies, some ethnographic studies also, but not so much quantitative in that area. But for instance, in developmental studies, we have a very long history of doing quantitative modeling and prediction of like what helps children to learn, what kind of environments are beneficial, and with children of learning disabilities, how they can compensate them. Technology-enhanced environments is one of the, maybe the newest areas, and AI and all those areas are of interest, and collaborative problem solving, digital learning and data literacy. I stop here. Thank you.